Frequency Radio is your number one source for news and information without the hate, hype, and fear. We're proud to feature cutting-edge programs like The Christopher Everard Show, The Covert Report with Susan Lindauer, Enemy Within Radio with Tom Barnes, Freaky Friday with the Woo Crew, The Gematria Effect with Zachary Hubbard, America's Evil Genius with Travis Cook, Phoenix Rising Radio with Phoenix, Quantum Connections with Lucky, and dozens more. Did you know you can listen from any telephone by dialing 641-793-7117 or call into your favorite show toll free at 833-TFR-LIVE. Uncensored talk and news you won't hear in the mainstream media. Truth Frequency Radio, your protection from deception.
A warning for Maduro. President's Day protests. I'm Evan Haining. President Trump has stepped up pressure on embattled Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. In Miami, the president urged that nation's military to back Juan Guaido as interim president. Trump went down a list of complaints about Maduro's government, confiscating wealth, shutting down free markets,
suppressed free speech, and set up a relentless propaganda machine, rigged elections, used the government to persecute their political opponents, and destroyed the impartial rule of law.
Trump said humanitarian aid at Venezuela's border should be delivered to the people. There were President's Day protests against Trump and his declaration of a national emergency as a way to get U.S. funding for a border wall.
Not that I hear. Oh, I know. My sound is on. There we go. Should be better.
Okay.
The organization Move On
how's my voice?
Organized more than 260 rallies in 48 states.
What did you just send me?
In Fort Worth, Texas, activists say the declaration oversteps a line the president shouldn't cross.
Oh, awesome.
We think that that Trump is the emergency.
I think people are just fed up. And they're worried because if he can do this, then what else can he do?
Hard to hear
The
you.
president says he expected opposition and lawsuits to follow his announcement, but would pursue the border wall regardless. Clayton Neville, Dallas.
The investigation into the country's last undecided congressional election continues. A North Carolina woman, Lisa Britt, has testified that GOP candidate Mark Harris did not know about the job given to her by a political operative. Correspondent Diane Gallagher describes the job.
She says that she was paid by a political operative who was working for a consulting firm that was being paid by the Republican candidate. And she says that this man, Trey Dallas, who used to be her stepfather, would pay her between $150, maybe $175 to go and collect absentee ballots.
Yeah, I'm going to go live now just because I can't find the little volume button on my video.
I'm Evan Haining.
I'm going to go live and then it will show up on there. Then I'll mute it.
This is Truth Frequency Radio.
The wicked ones obviously under heavy Masonic influence.
Astronauts to the moon.
Ten, 9, ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 10, 9, ignition sequence
get off track
start.
here, but I feel like we're in the Truman Show. We're in a snowboat and we just shook it up.
Welcome to reality.
And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to your protection from deception. That's right here at truthfrequencyradio.com and also streaming on the Jeranism YouTube channel. Hour one of the show, and you're all collectively tuned into the number one show on Truth Frequency Radio on Monday nights between the hours of 6 and 8 p.m. Pacific. That's 9 to 11 Eastern. That show is Jeranism Monday Night Raw, and it starts now. I'm your host, Jeran from Jeranism, and my co-host from across the plane is David Baldonado Weiss. David, what's going on?
I'm doing very well. I just made it back in the nick of time for the show, and Paige says that you need to change up your opening.
My intro? She doesn't like it?
Yeah. No, she likes it, but she says it's time for something new.
It's only been 3 years. I think I should go longer with it. Well, I like some of it and not other parts, but I do think it's funny to say that it's the number one show on Truth Frequency Radio, and then to have a little pause and then say on Monday nights between the hours. I don't know if people get the joke, but it is the number one show on Truth Frequency Radio on Monday nights. It's also the only show, but we won't really mention that part.
Matt, I kind of stole that. Matt and I were recording the podcast at like 5 a.m. on Saturday, and I said, I'm glad to be back with my favorite co-hosts on the Flat Earth podcast.
Yeah, you get the point. You got it. Yeah. All right. So it's been a very interesting week. Did you catch Globebusters yesterday?
I did. It was a mind bender.
It is a mind bender. It is. No, I totally agree. I just think that you're a little bit quiet tonight, but
I am. My voice, I can turn up the volume.
Maybe. Wow, it's much more Jewy, but it's not that.
I didn't know that was possible.
Oh, it's possible. Let me tell you, it can get worse.
All right.
No, I mean, the whole thing with science, and this is kind of just what I've realized recently, is it's like a tightrope walker, right? So the goal when you're walking a tightrope is you can never look down at your feet, because as soon as you do, you realize that you're basically in midair, and that's when you fall a long way down. But as long as you look straight forward, you can always walk safely across. That's kind of how tightrope walking works, and that's how science works. Science is afraid to look down, is afraid to look at the foundations, and they're fine as long as they just keep their head forward and just keep moving and don't pay any attention to the detractors and don't look at the tightrope that you're walking, because if you do, you're going to realize you're a long way up and it's a long fall. So I just realized that that's how science operates, and if they dared look at their foundations and everything that science is built upon, oh boy, it'd be trouble for them. So, and I think we had some evidence of that yesterday on Globebusters. So check that out if you didn't hear it. It's addressing the ever-prevalent concern of flat earthers and geocentrists around, which is the whole idea of a gas pressure next to a vacuum. Simply, it's crazy talk, in my opinion. I don't know about
and
you.
The video you played from Curious Jay with Neil deGrasse saying, what was the quote he said? He goes, "I'm not saying that gravity's holding it down, but it is."
Right.
The doublespeak.
Yeah, doublespeak. Yeah. At one point he says, "I'm not saying the Earth holds it down, but it does."
Hey, I have a question.
You can ask me anything you want.
Now, you said that Curious Jay was there, but we never heard him. Was he really there? And did he really have a sore throat? Or are you hiding his true identity that you don't want to share with people?
So his identity.
I'm going to share it.
No.
I'm going to share his identity right now.
Okay, tell us all.
It's Kurt Cobain.
Really? I didn't even realize
that, Jeran. It's time to share.
Shoot, I should. Yeah, well,
Curious Jay is Kurt Cobain.
Let me just say it could or could not be. It may or may not be. I don't know.
The truth is plain.
He came for the weekend. We watched the pretty awful wrestling pay-per-view yesterday. If anybody saw it, I have unfortunate news, Dave, that the current title holder, the Planet's champion, is still the champion. He did not lose, so we stood. And now when he comes out, Dave, as if there couldn't be anything else in my face that just makes me hate this guy, he comes out, and behind him on the big screen, I'm sure you've seen a wrestling entrance with the Titantron, he comes out with a spinning globe. And he's the Planet's champion. And, of course, I mean, he fought in like a chamber match last night with 6 other opponents. But one of the guys that he's mainly going up against is the guy from that video that people remember, AJ Styles, who, he made fun of for being a flat earther. And, so this guy's a flat earther. Can't believe it.
Do you think that maybe they're trying to conjure their reality, just like they do with all the drills? They conjure these things into existence.
Yeah, although they've been trying that for a long time. I mean, that's why I've always been the person. I know you have maybe a different belief about this, but a lot of people say you make your own reality, and I do agree with that to a certain extent. But where I don't is I say, well, if that was true, they had the whole world believing in these planets and orbits and everything else. So if everyone in the world believed that the sun is 93 million miles away, I don't think that would ever make the sun 93 million miles away. So that's where I draw the line when people say, oh, well, whatever people think or the collective human consciousness creates reality. I'm not somebody who thinks that, well, just because everyone on Earth believes that the sun's a certain distance away, that makes the sun that distance away. I don't think that's the case. But I think if you put it into schools like they've done so well, and you basically make it part of the indoctrination program, and then you start every movie with the rotating Earth into play, and then you can create in the consciousness of humanity that that's where they live, and I think they did an excellent job at that. But as far as making it reality, no, they didn't do a good job of that. I don't think it's reality.
Okay.
So we got a good show tonight for you guys. Again, the first hour will be live on my channel. If you want to follow the second hour on YouTube, you can click the link in the description to go to Ginger Sugarbush 915's channel, and you'll watch the second half there. Or you can just click the link also down there, which is tfrlive.com, and then just click Listen Live, and you'll pick up the second hour of the show there. So that should be fun. In the we're going to be taking a call here shortly, maybe keep it through the second or the first commercial to the end of the first hour. We're going to be joined by John, who is somebody who people who've listened to the show might have heard call in. He talks a lot about the stars and was trying to give us an overview of what he thinks, and it was a little hard to do over the radio. So last Tuesday or Wednesday, I don't remember which day it was, we had a short call with him, and I was like so intrigued by some of the things he was saying, I had to call David and say, do you mind if I get David on this call? And then David jumped in, and it was an interesting conversation, yeah?
Yeah, it was. He's a very interesting guy, has a lot to say. So it'll be interesting. Hey, before he comes on, can we promote the interview that's coming up within the next 2 hours? It's going to air.
I'm super excited. It's what I'm going to watch after this is over. Hopefully it comes out about that time. It sounds like a great thing to listen to as I get tired here towards the end of the night. Tell everybody what that interview is and where they can find it.
Yeah, it should come out probably maybe a half an hour after the show. He's working on it right now. It's Sean from the SGT Report YouTube channel. A lot of you are subscribed to him already. He does hard-hitting videos, well-produced on all the different topics, everything. And he had interviewed Marty Leeds and myself. And he basically has finally looked into the flat earth. He went down the path that we all did, refused to look at it, looks at it and realizes there's something there. He's a big fan of yours, Jeran. He has been watching a lot of your videos. He says hello.
Awesome.
And
hello to Sean.
So anybody, when it comes out, we'll post it everywhere. Subscribe to his channel and leave some flat earth love comments there. And help him fight off the onslaught of trolls that he will have, and the amount of people clicking the unsubscribe button.
Here they come. Now,
but here I say he's going to have a group of people unsubscribe, but he's now getting the largest, fastest growing, biggest group ever, which is the Flat Earth group, which will eventually be every single person on the plane.
That is so awesome. And if I'm not mistaken, doesn't he have 500,000 or more subscribers on that channel?
He's pushing 550,000 subs. That's what YouTube is showing us. It's probably even more than that. He's being highly suppressed and demonetized and everything. So, I appreciate his videos. They're really hard hitting. They get you to think, and you can show them to your sleeping friends, and their eyes will just glaze over and go, "Can I have some more fluoride, please?"
Yeah. More fluoride, and those are actually contrails in the sky. Those ones that stay up all day and through time lapse turn into clouds.
That's just there's more jet traffic now, Jeran, than there was in the 70s.
Yeah, I know that. I know that. I need to get that through my head. I'm sorry. Sorry for thinking on my own. I shouldn't do that. I should know that. Everybody check that out. That's on SGT Report, all one word. He's got a big channel, and that's always awesome. Anytime we can get Flat Earth more out there in the mainstream, I'm all for it. Dave, did I tell you, speaking of Flat Earth getting even larger, did I tell you that somebody recognized me? Can you believe it?
You did. I told the story, but do tell it again.
Well, I'll tell it real short that, Missa started working for DoorDash. If anybody knows what that is, it's just a food delivery app where she's a driver and we go pick up food. And for the first week, I was kind of helping her a little bit and just wanted to see myself, how the hell does this work? How can they even orchestrate this whole thing? Really good organization, and if you're looking for a job, I definitely recommend looking into it. It's something you can set your own schedule, and she seems to be making, at least so far, pretty good money. So it's going to help us out a lot. But I was out helping her, and we were sitting in front of Chipotle waiting for the next order. And some lady knocked on the window of my car. I'm like, what is this person doing? So I rolled down the window, and she's like, Jeran and Missa? We're like, yes. She's like, I love your stuff. I listen to your stuff all the time. So that was crazy, because if people remember the story, I don't know if I told it on Raw or where I told it, but when we were in Denver, and I was circling around making sure the parking lot was empty. 3 people that were actually at the conference got into my car, and I just told them, hey, I'm just making sure to get all the you stragglers so you can get to the billboard for the billboard meetup. And 3 people got in the back seat, and we drove, and it took about 15 minutes to get to that billboard, if I remember. And it wasn't until right when we pulled up that they realized who I was. So even people in the back of my car talking to me about, they're like, it's so cool. We saw Mark Sargent. It's so cool. We saw Patricia and this and that. And I'm like, yeah, great. It's awesome. But they didn't recognize me until we got there, and they asked, do you have a channel? I said, yeah, my channel's Jeranism. And then they went, what?
That's a great story.
Great story. They did not recognize me at all. And shout out to you guys. I believe they live back east. Don't remember exactly where. But, yeah, it was awesome to meet them. Also a shout out. I talked to a gentleman, Bob. He knows who he is. I talked to him on the phone today. Awesome supporter of me and the channel, and really likes the work that we're doing. So we had a good conversation today. So shout out to Bob. Thanks for all that you do. And then also we want to talk about real quick before we pick up the call, because it kind of coincides with it. Let's talk about the Zodiac addition to the Flat Earth Sun and Moon Clock app.
Oh, how do you like it? I'm so proud of it.
Oh, man, I love it. It's beautiful. I also want to mention Andrew, too, because I know Andrew does your artwork, and I'm always so impressed with the work he does. So
Andrew from Friends of Yahweh channel, he's the one that does all those great high-produced videos. Round and Curvy, I would say, is probably one of his signature videos.
One of my favorites. Mm-hmm.
And imitating the scientist in Antarctica, calling you out. That was great when that happened.
Great stuff.
And Tilt the Marshmallow Charlie, one of my favorites.
Absolutely. It's got some gems.
So Andrew did all of the artwork on the calendar. So on the app, and where it's out on iOS. There's an update coming again tomorrow for the iOS people, and I believe that Android may be published tomorrow, if not the following day. So sit tight, people. It's good. And now we're looking, and maybe we'll talk to John about this, is adding planets.
Yeah, let's definitely talk to John about that, because I think it would be awesome if we could. And it kind of boggles my mind. And, when we started talking to John last week in the private call that we had, he was boggling my mind even more. And just the understanding of the sky is even more clear. So I hope that we can kind of convey that tonight. For those listening on YouTube, you'll be able to see, I'm going to put up an image that's going to kind of help us with John. He's going to kind of talk us through it a little bit. So I'll put that up here in a second. And then I will also load it into the TFR chat if I can. So everybody should be able to see if you're have any way of looking at the screen. If you're on TFR, if you're listening on the radio or iHeartRadio, you'll have to go to my channel to see the image that we're talking about. But let me go ahead and put that on the screen now. So yeah, really interesting. But let's go ahead and bring John on. Did you have anything else you want to talk about before we get to that? So everybody, just to make sure, everybody has the update with the Zodiac on their phone, correct?
No, on iOS. Only Apple has the update. So here's the other thing. Sometimes it takes Apple a little while to tell you there's an update. So if you don't have the Zodiac on your phone and you're not being notified of an update on Apple only, delete the app and then re-download it and you'll have it. Okay? Android, I'm beta testing a final version hopefully tomorrow morning. If so, it'll be uploaded. Worst case scenario, by Wednesday, you'll have it for Android.
Okay, sounds awesome. Yep, I have it on mine, and it's amazing to watch. It's great the way the button works. I love everything about it. So yeah, as we said, you may have heard this voice before. Let me pull him on to the phone call if I can here. And let's see, he's in the, area code. Let me see there. John, can you hear us? John O.
Yeah, how are you?
Great, glad to have you on the show again.
Hey, John.
Great to be here.
Good.
Hey, Dave.
So great
the
way the button works. I love everything about it. So I guess can you just start off by telling everybody how you got into this flat Earth concept and where you began? Because I think that's an interesting story that it didn't start like most of us. That
John,
you were into the sky long before any of us. So go ahead and just tell people who you are and how you got into this.
Great.
Glad
to have you on the show again.
Thanks, Jeran. Yeah, my name's John O. I got a YouTube channel called Truth, Love, and Freedom. There's not much on there, but I've been a truth seeker for a while. I lived overseas for a while, came back and got married in 2005. And after that time, I had a lot of questions. I had some friends that were going through some physical conditions at young ages, and 2 of them passed away. And it made me question a lot of different things that I had understood about my health and about life in general. And that's kind of where my truth seeking began, was more in the health side of things. And of course, that led me not too far right into 9/11. And, that was 3 years of my life studying the conspiracy side of things and understanding some of those things. And little by little, things got back into a spiritual point of view, and I got into astrology. I was tired of everything on TV. There was nothing there for me anymore. So I decided to just go outside and look at the black screen of the sky and watch the lights of the heavens light up the sky. And I sit out there all hours of the night. I don't sleep a ton. I never have. I'm kind of a night owl and an early bird at the same time. And I just kept watching the sky, and I saw patterns that I had never learned about. And I started studying astrology, and little by little, the flat earth came out. And actually 2 years before it did, I had a friend tell me the earth was fixed. And I thought he was crazy, and he put me on some website, and it was a big religious thing, and I just couldn't get into it. But little by little, I started to learn from videos from you guys and others about some of the concepts that were in the flat earth, and they just matched perfectly with the astrology and a lot of the other elements of my studies, in music and different things. They all had this synchronicity that just lined up perfectly. And that was what really kind of brought me deeper and deeper into the flat earth, was not just the science of it, but also just the philosophical side, that I feel that many of us lack things today, and some of what we lack is the truth that's being deceived from us, right? So as I started to learn of these things, it really filled in some gaps of why people might feel that they're very much on unsteady ground. Right? Because the ground they're on is spinning and moving, but in reality it's still, they just don't realize it, and how that plays on our minds.
No, I totally agree. And also, just, I do have that image up on the live stream, and I did drop it in the TFR chat. So if at any time you want to refer to the image, just so you know it's up.
Yeah.
John, I agree with that statement, that if you think you're spinning, you really won't have your feet planted on the ground, because your belief creates your reality. 2 people can be in the same dark alley. One of them believes that they're going to be raped, murdered, and eaten by a lion. The other person knows it's completely safe. Yeah. They're going to have different experiences.
Now, in that case, Dave, absolutely. I do agree that people do create their reality. See, in that case, that's where it does work. Absolutely.
Yeah, well, you're right, Jeran, about what you said earlier. On a personal level, we're creating that reality, but there's a reality that exists in common, right? And that reality is something that is fixed. It is solid. We're not changing the heavens and the earth apart from our influence. And that influence, although is destructive, it's not changing day and night, right?
Right.
Every day is day and every night is night. We're not changing that. There's something about this world that is solid, even in the midst of all of its movement, So I'm with you on that completely. We don't create reality, but we do create our reality,
Absolutely. And especially,
but yeah, we can look at this. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, when we talk about the indoctrination of children and everything that we're getting at, that's where everybody's reality was immediately shifted to that heliocentric. You're just a speck of dust in this ever expanding, ever growing, space paradigm. That was and is most people's reality. So it just kind of comes down to semantics, what exactly we're talking about. It doesn't mean that just because everybody believes that they live on a globe that they actually do. But if that's right, your pure belief that you grow up with, and even though it's just a philosophical idea, and it's the problem is scientists have such a severe philosophical bias, and the reason why is simple, because philosophically these guys, they don't want there to be a center, let alone it be the earth. They don't want any prime importance placed on the earth. They don't want to ever even consider that, and so they steer science away from it in every possible moment. And I like the ideas of astrology because I believe that the stars are so much closer, and they definitely have an influence on the Earth. And the way that they've done it, they've made them so far away that there's no influence possible. The closest star being 25 trillion miles away. It's ridiculous.
Exactly. And I love how you showed, some of that information in the past. It's so good. And we know it is more of an electromagnetic universe that we're in. So that makes so much more sense, that these things do have a power. And from my experience of studying astrology, and we'll keep it more with the science of how the stars move tonight, but just studying the actual effect of those stars upon our person, I find that from the moment you leave the dark waters of the womb and you enter into the light of day, at that very moment, there's a connected energy that you have with your time. And that energy never leaves from the beginning of your time to the end of your time. And only you are fixed in that time, because only you were born in the very space that you were born at the very time you were born. So even with the twin, there's a difference there. And this exact signature can be found in the signature of the sky at the moment of your birth. And that is a literal connection in some manner. And that connection, of course, is so large that it goes beyond the degree of our understanding. And we can't prove everything about it, but we can see so many patterns in the piece that we can see, if that makes sense. But the more you look at it, if you just look at what time of year you were born, whether it's spring, summer, fall, or winter, that's going to speak about your person. And the more detailed you look at, yes, sir.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Finish what you're saying, then I'll jump in. Go ahead.
I'm just saying, the more detailed you look at your moment, the more detailed you look at your time, the more you'll be able to get out of that design. And that design's not a destiny, it's a design, if that makes sense.
My entire life, I laughed at astrology, just saying, how can the position of one of these distant rocks and, ultra distant stars affect who you are? But once, now that I understand that, everything is close and energetic and connected, it makes so much sense. We don't understand it, but we can see that it does affect us. It is the matrix that we are within, and just, if you believe that we live in a heliocentric world, as described, and you believe in astrology, you might be an idiot.
Yeah, but we're all just misled, it's deceived and misled is where we are, and that's where, to come back to the beginning, I'm not coming on the show as if I know anything tonight. The one thing I've learned is that the more I realize there is to know, and the more my knowledge just shows the space that I don't know yet. That's all it does, is it just shines a light on more of the picture that I don't know. It doesn't necessarily remove the ignorance. It just helps me understand my ignorance better, But with this picture that you put up there, Jeran, if we look at that picture, it's basically showing a centered Earth, which if you look at, just look at your clock on the wall or your watch on your wrist.
Well, hold on one second, just because
center point.
John, wait one second. Sure. And the reason I say that is because we do have a break coming up in about a minute and a half. Yeah, we'll go to the commercial, and then when we get back, we'll focus on that particular image. But one thing I just wanted to mention when we were talking about astrology real quick is, of course, the quote by J.P. Morgan, who once famously said that millionaires don't need astrologers, but billionaires do. People could believe that that's just in jest, or he's just saying it however he wants. But I'll tell you, being a bookseller and owning an online bookstore one time, that one of the most often requested books was a book called, now I can't remember the name of it. It was Playing the Market by the Stars or something like that. But it was even a PDF book that was $8,000 just for the PDF. That you think that usually you can find stuff like that online. And I had so many people contact me through my chat on my website saying, hey, is there any way you can get me a cheap copy of this book? I probably had 10 to 15 people ask for that specific book, and if you look it up on Amazon, it's $8,000. That's pretty incredible.
It's amazing.
Hey, everybody, during the break, go stretch your legs, go outside and look at the full moon. If you're not sure where it is, open up your app, and you'll know right where it is.
Beautiful. Yeah, let's go look at the stars. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to
Full Moon tonight.
Monday Night Raw.
10 a.m. in the morning exactly.
Extendivite is more than just a heart tonic. Do you have any of these symptoms? Night cramps in the hands and feet. Your arms and legs often go to sleep. On short walks, do your legs get aches and pains? Is your memory worse than it used to be? Ankles that swell late in the day? Has your blood pressure increased lately? If you answered yes to even one of these questions, you may have early warning signs of arterial blockages. Your body is saying that it is time to take Extendivite. These are not the normal signs of aging. They are the warning signs that accompany blocked arteries. Get your Extendivite today. Extendivite is available in capsule or liquid form for just $69.95 for a 2-month supply. To get started, call 1-877-928-8822. That's 1-877-928-8822 or visit heartdrop.com.
Extend your life with Extendivite.
Poor water quality is a major health issue, and it's only getting worse. Municipalities can't keep up, standards have dropped, and pollutants are increasing. Where does it all end? It ends by keeping the pollutants outside of your home with HydroCare's advanced systems available at Wave Home Solutions. No less than the best purification materials and processes have been developed by HydroCare to provide you with healthy, clean water for drinking, cooking, and showering. HydroCare far surpasses the competition in removing chlorine, odors, iron, lead, chemicals, limescale, and much more. Don't settle for less when it comes to your water. We'll take care of the toughest water problems for you, whether it's from a city or well source. Satisfaction guaranteed. For more information, call 888-997-WAVE. That's 888-997-WAVE. Or go to bestwater123.com. That's bestwater123.com.
Wave Home Solutions for a healthy, comfortable home.
We exist in the security and comfort of our worlds. Paved paths, lights, and manicured lawns give us peace of mind that our world has been tamed, and we are its master. But other worlds exist on the edge of our sight. On the edge of our awareness, the shadows move. The woods fill with the unblinking eyes of the nightmares our ancestors warned us about. Some of us have stumbled into these forgotten realms, whether on purpose or completely by surprise. I'm Brent Thomas. Join us on the Paranormal Portal Friday and Saturday nights from 10 p.m. to midnight Pacific Standard Time as we journey into the world of the paranormal phenomena.
Enter the Paranormal Portal if you dare.
We are TFR.
My faith in destiny is all I need to prevail.
Truth Frequency Radio.
All right, welcome back. You are listening to Jeranism Monday Night Raw, and I just got in from looking at the stars and the moon, and then I saw in the chat that people were saying that John's mic was on and he was talking during the commercial. So, John, if you said anything bad about me, I'm sure you didn't mean it, right? I don't know what was said. I was outside.
I did not mean it. I did not.
All right, so I got the image up, and go ahead and continue off where you were before I rudely interjected.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, no matter what timepiece we have, like, not digital, but the analog clocks that we have, they always have a center point, and they're always circular, and they have a hand that goes around them. Whether it's a moon clock, a sun clock, whatever it might be. Just like an astrolabe has a flat disc and a stereo graphic image of a hemisphere above it, in the same way, these things have come from the sky. That's where we learn these things, is people looking up at the sky got to understand how time works. And we can understand that on the concept of a day is simply the sun coming and then going, so we know a day. And little by little, they've shrunk our time down into this calendar where we can keep this amazing clock of the sky going on this 365 and a quarter, and it will keep all the relationships the same throughout that year. So that's come from the sky. The picture that we put on there is just basically a center point of heaven with the 88 constellations that are the 88 constellations of the sky shown. And, obviously they're connected, so those lines aren't there, but the stars are still fixed in relationship to one another in the sky. And they've put that into 88 constellations. So as those constellations, every day they make a full turn, and that turn is centered at the North Pole, at the North Star Polaris. And every day they make a turn, and in NASA world, that's called a sidereal or sidereal day. And that's 23 hours and 56 minutes. And that's how long it takes for the constellations to make a full circle. And this picture here is showing you those 88 constellations. And then it has a few different points. And one of those points is called the ecliptic or the zodiac wheel. In the Bible, it was called the Mazzaroth. There's all different words that we've used for it, but it's basically a circle in the sky that is the same size as the equator and 23.4 degrees off center from, and that off-centered circle is the circle by which the sun, moon, and the stars that we know as planets, dwarf planets, even centaurs and asteroids as NASA has defined them, whatever these bodies are in the sky, I don't pretend to know what they are, but whatever they are, they follow that circle in the sky. And that circle doesn't actually move. It's just all the stars in the sky that are constellated make a circle. And part of that circle is that zodiac circle. In Jeremiah in the Bible, it's called the wheel in the wheel. This is kind of the picture that there's a wheel inside of a wheel. And that wheel is the zodiac wheel. And that's where the sun, moon, and stars go around. The funny thing is they actually go the other way around in that circle, which is the interesting thing that I began to learn. Before I learned about the flat earth, I didn't know. So I was a stupid person that still believed in the helio-noncentrical model, even though I knew astrology. But little by little, as soon as I learned of flat earth, I was like, well, this makes all the sense in the world, because the only way anything I've learned makes sense is that I'm in the middle of it and I'm not moving. So, which is what we know of the earth, right? So,
and I think it's unbelievable, cool. Or it's incredible, and great to hear and find out that, as you said, that the blue set of stars, the zodiac, is offset by exactly 23.5 degrees, which, again, if you're on the ground and you need to give a reason, then the reason has just been switched now to saying, oh, well, the earth is tilted at 23.5 degrees when actually it's the sky.
Exactly. Yeah, so, and just the way that it is off-centered, it makes the Tropic of Capricorn, when people say the Tropic of Capricorn, all they're talking about is, if you look at that blue circle, the outside edge that's furthest from the center, that edge of the circle is where Capricorn meets Sagittarius. And at that point, that's the furthest point the sun ever gets in that circle, and that's when it makes the largest circle around the earth every day that we call our winter time, where we are.
Right. So December,
in the northern hemisphere.
So in December, the sun would be in Sagittarius.
Yeah, it starts in Sagittarius, and and then it goes into, on December 20th or 21st or 22nd, it moves into Capricorn, and it remains in Capricorn through January 20-something, and then it moves to Aquarius and so on, which is interesting because in astrology, the Capricorn is the father. It's the number 10. And it's interesting that we begin and end our year in Capricorn, which is the darkest time of year. It's kind of the womb of the year, if that makes sense. Those 3 days of darkness, that's the funny thing. When the sun gets to the Tropic of Capricorn, it remains there for 3 days and 3 nights with only 1 minute of change in its return forward. And that time is where a lot of these stories of the sun going away for 3 days and 3 nights, it probably comes from that big sun in the sky that everybody can see go away for 3 days and 3 nights, you know. So this is where that story comes from. And it's pointing to, this is the beginning. This is actually the womb of the year when life begins, before life begins, before the springtime comes the winter. And this is that time. So all these things make sense on a very physical and also spiritual level. And if it doesn't make sense on both, I don't really accept it much. You know, it's got to have harmony to work.
No, I totally agree. And real quick, I'm just transitioning the image for everyone to see the Flatter Sun and Moon Clock app, so you can see the zodiac on the screen there. I'll play that for a little bit, so you can see how this all rotates. There you go. And so these stars here, the zodiac that's rotating.
Wait a minute, I don't see it, Jeran.
Oh, it should be there in a second. It might just be behind. There's a little bit of a delay, I think. But I just have your video up playing. Still not showing?
I do not see. Oh, there it is. Just came in.
There you go. So I was just showing everybody. I'll rewind it just one more time. Just a little bit, just showing the zodiac and how that all spins. And then, so remember, the zodiac signs are the constellations that are located within the blue set of stars, which you can see here. Mm-hmm. So yeah, go ahead and continue talking a little bit. I guess describing how the sun makes its way through those stars would be great.
Yeah. So basically, you know, the way that the sun works, and you were talking earlier about adding planets to the zodiac, and that certainly can be done. When you look up astrology, you'll see that you can create a natal chart from the current time. And that current chart will show you exactly where, you know, the different planets, Mars, Venus, Mercury, Jupiter, Saturn, and however far you want to go, where they are at that present time. And they have their kind of the plane that they move in. They have their kind of pattern in which they move in and their speed in which they move. And each one's a little bit different, and that's why we have different actions. So the sun, it's on a flat plane in the sky. The moon is 5 degrees tilted. So the moon is at times 5 degrees below the sun's path, and at other times 5 degrees higher. But the sun, it's always on the same level. And that sun is just slowly moving at about a degree a day, a little less than that, through that circle. And that circle is also moving every day around the earth, and that's why we see the sun seem to go around the earth, but all the sun's really doing is slowly moving through that zodiac circle. So if you tend to hear about sun sign astrology, which is kind of a disconnected piece of it, but nevertheless, people understand that part of it. They know that right now the sun is in Aquarius, and the sun is soon to move into Pisces. And if we look at that in the sky, we see the sun is actually going in a counterclockwise or westerly direction, even though every day it's going around the earth in the opposite direction. And
John, I have a question.
We regularly see.
I have a question. So recently in designing this app, I really never comprehended exactly how this, when they say the sun is in that sign, how does that work? And now I fully get it because it's just circling with it. So the sun takes, 30 days or give or take to go through a sign, which makes, the sign is outrunning it by 15 degrees, whatever, in that period of time. The moon, however, plows through these things, 2 or 3 days at a time. Because it's going.
That's right.
Does where the moon, what sign the moon is in, is that a big thing in astrology, or is that not paid attention to?
Absolutely. No, absolutely. In true astrology, which existed before 1959, 1963, sometime in between that, sun sign astrology, which is what little we know is about sun sign astrology. And sun sign astrology was just made for newspapers because they couldn't fit everything into the newspaper. So some guy was like, well, something's better than nothing. So he came up with the idea, well, let's just put the sun sign in there. And it's easier to fit on a page. And it was a genius idea. It made them a lot of money. Unfortunately, it opened the door for them to just even more water down what astrology is. So what the sun sign astrology does show, though, is that where the sun is. And like you said, it's there for a month. The moon, where that is just as important, if not more. The sun reveals a little bit about how you live, but the moon reveals a little bit about how you feel. It's more the inside. Just like we've learned that the sun is the same size as the moon, relatively speaking, within reason. There's not much of a difference in size. We see that on the eclipse and so on and so forth. In the same way, I think that's a big problem that we have in life, is we can't balance life because we don't realize that the feminine energy is just as important as the masculine energy, the sun being the masculine and the moon being the feminine.
So looking at the
feminine energy, just like Dave said, it goes around way faster than the sun. It's going way faster. It's going around every 2.5 days. It's going through a sign.
Are you saying that a feminine energy is changing radically so fast that you never know what they're thinking?
There you go, right? Well, you could always draw these conclusions, Dave. I'm not going to say that, no.
I said that offline to me earlier.
Women can run circles around us, right? Women can run circles around us. I can say that.
You can say that.
But
wait,
anyhow,
let me ask you just one more dumb question, and I'll let you continue. So let's say the moon is in Aquarius or whatever it is for those 2 days.
Yeah.
Can you? Is it safe to assume that in the following months, during the 2 or 3 days that it's in Aquarius, that you'll have similar feelings, energy, things happening? Is there a correlate? Is it that well correlated where you can actually see, these patterns reappear when the moon is in the specific sign?
Yes, but this changes by degree within different people at different times and different cycles of their lives. We know, like, my mom's a nurse and my sister as well, God bless them, but these kind of people, they work in hospitals and they always make note of the full moon, right? They may be Bible stompers who think astrology is devil worship, but nevertheless, they're going to recognize that on the full moon, things get freaking crazy up in here, So they can see this relationship. And what I'm saying is the more conscious you become of these relationships, the more you will see them. Now, is it ever cut and dry where I can say, I know how Dave's feeling tonight? Well, I have to be careful of presumption because there are many layers to your nature, and you are one of a kind. So I don't know everything about you, and I can't pretend to, even though I may understand a lot about someone that may be in a similar thing. Just like you might assume to know a lot about a 40-year-old white man because you're a 40-year-old white man, but that doesn't mean you know anything about the guy you're talking to. If that makes sense.
So I guess the one part that people might be confused at, and maybe I'll use my mouse to kind of show people, hopefully this is showing on the live stream, I can't tell, as I can't look at both screens.
Yeah.
But so what you're saying is this entire disk of stars turns once a day or once every 23 hours, 56 minutes, correct?
Yes, fixed. It doesn't, imagine it like an upside down bowl in the sky, right? And that bowl is spinning, or a flat plane above some kind of force field that makes it look rounded. I don't know what it is, but basically there's a flat disk of stars above us, and that flat disk of stars turns constantly at a rate of 23 hours and 56 minutes for 360 degrees. So that's the rate of that. Within that dome of stars is a circle that appears as the zodiac wheel. And that circles within all those other stars and moving with them, not separate from them, but with them. And within that circle, we see the sun, moon, and planets, we could call them. And that is what Dave was talking about earlier when they say the sun is in Aquarius. It means when you look up at the sun, it would be in Aquarius. Now, of course, you can never tell that because wherever the sun is, you can't see the stars, right? So the way that you can tell that is by knowing where the moon is or where the sun is near and so on and so forth. And this is the whole study of astrology where it's born, is understanding these patterns.
Hey,
the cool thing is they do understand the patterns, but they hide the truth from us. That's all.
John, Anthony Riley in the chat has been asking, what is your opinion on the moon? Is it within the firmament? Is it in the sky? Is it physical? Do you have a thought on that?
Yeah.
Or okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't really have a thought of the matter that makes the sky. Obviously, there is some component of these stars that is matter, okay? In other words, it's not gas, it's not water, and it's not air alone. There's something of it that makes it stay a hold of the way it does what it does. So to me, there has to be a component of matter in some level. I could be wrong, but nevertheless, I would think there is something there, but I have no idea what that is. The one thing I would say from my studies is that in almost every of the old cultures that had a knowledge of these things, they show the moon being the closest to us. Now, when they show that image, I don't know how to translate that. I don't know if that just simply means the moon is moving the fastest because we see the moon is moving the fastest of the big bodies. Or do they mean that the moon is somehow closer in some way that allows it to appear to be faster to us as we look at it from our point of view, our perspective? I don't know how that works, so I can't really answer Anthony. And I love Anthony's work. He does great work too.
Right. Well,
but I don't know.
Wouldn't it make sense that the moon would appear larger when it's at a portion of this blue circle that is nearer to you?
Yeah, absolutely. That would be what that would be translated at is where the zenith of the moon is, right? So where the height is. If I've lived my whole life up in Massachusetts before I went overseas, and then I moved back and I moved to South Carolina. So now I'm on the 33rd degree latitude. So when I'm here, I see totally different than I used to see up north, and that's really helped me understand it too. Just to know. Yeah, you're right. The moon does, and the sun appears to be closer to over my head at times of the year here than it would have if I was up north. Okay, but
and so I guess the other
it just depends. But you're right, Jeran. That circle's not moving. So yeah, if you live under it, you're always going to be living under that part of it.
And I think what people may not get, and it took me a while to get, is that when you kind of picture this whole disk of stars moving, and of course this goes clockwise, that from our perspective, we're going to see the sun travel counterclockwise through these blue stars, correct? And it would take a year for them to get to the start.
Exactly. And we're not going to notice that when we're not paying any attention, right? So if you stop people from observing the sky, well, then you just out-science them already because they can't even get to step one, right? So that's basically what they've done. We passively look up at the sky and we think the moon has something to do with nighttime, which the moon's got something to do with daytime just as much as nighttime. Right. So that's stupid. And then we believe that the sun is going the way we think when it's not. It's not going down. It's just going away from us. And it's not actually going the direction it's going. The whole sky's going that direction, and it's going with it. What's phenomenal about the planets, what's different about them, is that they resist that flow. They have a resistance to it, and they're going the other way. How they're doing that, I don't know yet, but I'm very interested for sure.
Yeah. And so just so people see like what we're talking about, if here you can see my mouse, I've got it here. I think probably this is near Capricorn. And if you picture now this whole disk of stars spinning, you would see the sun make an outer track through here in one day. And if we then instead put the sun here, which would be the northern summer, probably June, then if you picture the circle that the sun would take here, it would take this inner circle. And so wherever the sun is throughout this blue set of stars, the zodiac, you can picture there being from there a circle that the sun would take within this whole disk of stars. But of course, the sun remains in this blue set, which is offset by, you guessed it, 23.5 degrees.
Exactly. And that's why you also see the analemma, because the sun's making that circle throughout the year as that circle's made. And when you plot that out, that's where you get the analemma, with the outside being longer than the inside. So it's all there. It's amazing. And a lot of this stuff gets, I think ignorance is our biggest enemy. You know, we make all these things to be our enemy, but it's just, we don't know. None of us know everything, and everything's connected. So we really don't know anything then, you know?
Right.
And I think that's what sets us apart from a lot of people, is that a lot of truthers are open, but flat earth truthers, they're not only open, but they're going after it, and they're going to prove what they believe to be true as knowledge, or they're going to dump it. And that's what I love about it, and I hope that we can continue with that, because I think there's a lot of things we need to dump. I think the idea of a Satan, the idea of an embodiment of evil, I think this is something that we need to dump. And there's a lot of things that go into that affect people's minds as well. And this is creation is really what we're fighting for.
Right. That goes into the whole idea of, you know, if you believe it, then that can become part of your reality, and you'll start to attribute certain things to certain forces, certain beings, if you want.
That's right.
And so basically, so people gather it. The sun is moving. If you look on a day-to-day basis, it would be progressing in a counterclockwise motion of about 1 degree per day. So as I'm moving my mouse here, you'll see that each day that you looked at the sun, as this whole entire disk is spinning clockwise, the sun appears to go counterclockwise like this, day by day by day, and it would be, you know, about 1 degree a day, correct?
Yeah, and then the moon is doing 12.5 degrees more than the sun every day. So that's why the moon is doing this 12 or 13 times. One interesting thing about the full moon tonight, and I hope this translates well, but one interesting thing about the full moon tonight is every full moon there's always a full moon in opposition to the position of the sun. So every season, the sun right now is in Aquarius, the full moon will be in Leo, opposite of Aquarius. The interesting thing is that the moon that actually technically happens at 9:47 a.m. tomorrow, that moon is in Virgo, but the sun is in Aquarius. The interesting thing, even though there's that odd moon out, there's still going to be a moon in Pisces. There already was a moon in Aquarius, and next year there'll be 13 moons to catch back up again. And these are the things that are unbelievable to learn, that the full moon is always opposite the sun, because it has to be. We now know that on a physical level, but there's also an energetic correspondence in these opposites and why they attract and so on and so forth. And there's a lot of information here that we can take to people on a lot of different levels to bring them to this. Because one thing I'm convinced of is even the scientist did not choose to believe his worldview because of science. Most of the time he believed it because of his parents, because of his culture, because of his nation, because of his beliefs. And a lot of these things we know have been severely manipulated in all of our lives.
Yeah, awesome. And I see somebody send a super chat of how can I call you? You can call into the show if you want. Get in line. We are going to be taking calls the second half. That phone number is 213-233-3998. I'll put that on the screen, 213-233-3998. And again, you'll have to either click the link in the description to follow us for hour 2. John, you have about a minute. Any final words before we let you go? Appreciate you being on, though. It's been awesome.
I thank you for the opportunity, Jeran. And
do you have any sites where people can follow you, or can find some of your other work, or do you have anything like that, Instagram or something?
I would say my main thing that I do is on Instagram. I'm called Shoreland Fellow, so ShorelandFellow at Instagram. So that's my Instagram, and I do have, like I said earlier, Truth, Love, and Freedom on YouTube is my thing. I do have a video on there. I took the information from No BS or whatever they're called, and they did the time and date conversion to the flat Earth map, and I took that and I showed on the seasons where the sun is in that zodiac wheel. I tried to. It's not the best video, but so I have a few things out there, but most of it is my writings that are on my Instagram at Shoreland Fellow.
Okay, and Truth, Love, and Freedom is the YouTube, so I will make sure I put that in the description so people can check out that video if they want. But yeah, John, and let people leave a comment on this video if they want to hear more from John. We would love to have him back on the show if he wants to tell us a little bit more, but really appreciate you being on.
My pleasure, Jeran. Thanks for all you do, and thank you, Dave.
All right, man. Thanks for coming on.
All right, guys, we'll be right back with the second half. You can click the link or go to Ginger Sugar Bush 915 channel.
Hi, my name is Ella, and I'm 10 years old. I'm one of the millions of children born to parents suffering from the sheeple virus. Symptoms include the inability to think for oneself, the attention span of a goldfish, and a strong belief in government and the mainstream media. It is estimated that 1 out of every 2 children are being raised by parents infected with the sheeple virus. But there is a cure. For as little as 19 cents per day, you can become a TFR supporter and help children like me get their daily dose of truth. Together, we will make sure every child has protection from deception.
Trump blasts Maduro. U.S. future against ISIS. I'm Evan Haining. Speaking to a cheering crowd, mostly of Venezuelan and Cuban immigrants in Miami, President Trump warned Venezuela's military to stop backing President Nicolas Maduro and support Juan Guaido, the self-declared interim president.
The eyes of the entire world are upon you today, every day, and every day in the future. You cannot hide from the choice that now confronts you.
Maduro's government refuses to accept humanitarian supplies that Venezuelans desperately need. 16 states have filed a lawsuit to block President Trump's plan to build a border wall without permission from Congress. California Attorney General Javier Becerra argues Trump's national emergency is unconstitutional.
Everyone is concerned when you hear that $8 billion of money that you were expecting to come for other important programs is now going to be raided by the president to pay for a border wall, which Congress specifically decided not to fund at the level the president wants. I think every state should be worried.
In Syria, the commander of the U.S.-backed and Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces, SDF, has asked Joseph Votel, the top American general in the Middle East, to provide air support and keep up to 1,500 troops in Syria to help stabilize the country.
General Votel making no promises, saying that the U.S. was looking at how it could continue to help the SDF, but making it absolutely clear that U.S. ground forces, more than 2,000 of them, will be coming out of this country, that withdrawal is going to take place.
Correspondent Barbara Starr. If you like to know the names of your winter storms, call this one Petra. It's expected to bring snow to the southwest and midwest and a narrow zone of freezing rain to parts of Oklahoma, Missouri, and Arkansas. Also, weather for the mid-Atlantic. I'm Evan Haining.
You must unite what has been set asunder.
We are TFR, Truth Frequency Radio.
On the weekday, don't be surprised, don't be surprised. Walk like us. They even talk like us. Walk like us. But they are not like us. On the weekday, you can see the signs, you can see the signs. They wear the disguise. Look into the mind's eye. There's nowhere to hide. Don't stick colored lies. Whispers from afar.
All right, welcome back. You are listening to Jeranism Monday Night Raw. We've got a big lineup on the phone already, so if you want to get in line for that, 213-233-3998. Be ready to be fairly quick. I do want to talk about a few more things. Dave, I have an exciting video coming out. I think I'm going to do a live stream tomorrow. The plan was originally I was trying to make a video where I just read all the quotes I have, which are well over 100 quotes that tell us that the Earth is fixed, that tell us that it does not move, that every test shows it doesn't move, and so many other quotes around that subject. And originally I was trying to make like a slide for everyone, and then I just realized this is ridiculous. This will take me forever. So I just figured I'm just going to do a live stream where I pull up my OneNote. And for those who don't have a way of organizing your research online, you need to get OneNote. It is awesome. I've been using it for years, and it's got all my data on there. So I'm just kind of reorganizing everything, putting all the quotes together, and then I'll just read through those probably tomorrow. But I think it'll be a good video for people to hear some of these quotes. So
nice.
Aren't you excited about that?
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that will be tomorrow. Also, people who listen to the show might know of Carlos, who calls in sometimes, and I might kind of owe him this, but this subject is around the movie, The Behind the Curve. Dave, have you heard a lot of people talking about it recently in the last couple of days?
I've banned people for commenting on it.
Well, it just hit Netflix, and yeah, so the first call I got was my mom texted me yesterday and said, "Did you know you're in a movie on Netflix?" And I said, "Yes, I know about that movie." And then I proceeded to tell her, I said, "Well, don't watch it too closely because they totally misrepresented my experiment and lied to me and showed my neighbors." And I was telling her all these things, and she said, "Well, I'll call you back when I watch the movie." So she watched the movie, and she called me like, "What do you mean that they misrepresented the experiment?" And I said, "Well, they took something out of place and put it at the end of the movie." I said, "That wasn't a result of the experiment. That was just an observation in the middle, and there were many observations." And I said there were globe people there, globe believers, who we all walked away at the end of it and said, "Well, nothing was proven here." And I said these movie directors just took my experiment and put it at the end of the movie and took it out of sequence. And she was like shocked. She said, "Well, I don't understand. Isn't that lying?" Didn't it? I thought, no. This is how my mom. She's a little bit little naive when it comes to reality. But yeah, she was just taken aback by, "Well, I don't understand how they can make a documentary and lie about you in it." And
documentary means truth.
You see, this is people's thoughts. So one of the reasons I was bringing up Carlos there is because after seeing the movie, Carlos contacted me and said, "Hey, I've got an idea for the experiment back at the canal, and it's something I'd been thinking about for a while, and it was kind of based on that particular observation there." And what we did was when the laser wouldn't hold its beam diameter, which was the problem. Remember, we had these 4 panels. We were trying to send a laser from one for a total of 4 miles, 3.88 miles, and no matter what we would do, excuse me, by the time the laser got to the second or third panel, the beam was so large that it would no longer go through the hole correctly. And in fact, some of the light would go through, but it would create what they call an interference pattern. Basically, the light just becomes, I don't know, we called it like a snowball. It just didn't look circular anymore. And we were like, man, how are we going to measure anything off this blob? And so then we just started playing around with the person at the far end and saying, "Hey, lift the light up, put the light down, hold it to the right, hold it to the left," just trying to see what we can see. In that process is when at one point we said, "Put the light up above your head so we can see it, see if we see it." And he put it up above his head, and we saw it. And then I said, "Interesting." And then we said, "Okay, now step back a little bit. Now put it at your chest. Now do this." And then there was times where he would put it at his chest, and we could see it. And that's a flat Earth proof. So we were kind of, but again, this wasn't the experiment. This wasn't the reason that those guys went out to film the experiment. The experiment was shooting a laser from one side to the other. And then inside that, we started coming up with other ideas. So Carlos kind of had this idea where he said, couldn't we do an experiment with the bright light and cutting these holes in the panels? And I totally agree. I showed Dave the other day the experiment. What did you think of it, Dave?
It's great. You want to explain it?
Yeah, I mean, basically, it's just simple that the easiest part of that experiment was measuring the distance to the surface of the water, which is the canal that runs next to the road that we're on. It's very close. The water's very close, and you can just send out a beam from the bottom of that panel and then measure how far up that beam hits the. We had a measuring stick where we had it marked off, and then you can easily see the exact within an inch. There's no way you'd be off by more than an inch of the height of this particular panel. So the thought is, if we cut maybe a 1 foot diameter hole in the panel at the beginning of the observation and put a camera behind it, and then we add another panel about a mile away, another panel about a mile away, and then a far panel about 4 miles away, and we cut a foot hole in each of them at exactly the same height from the water. So we're going to start at panel 1. We're going to say, okay, well, let's decide whatever it is. Let's say 15 feet. We're going to cut a hole at 15 feet above the water. So we cut a perfect hole 15 feet above the water, and then we're going to move to panel number 2. Again, we'll measure what 15 feet is from the surface of the water. We'll cut another hole in that panel. We'll move back to panel 3, do the same thing, and then finally the last panel. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go to panel 1 and have somebody shine my bright portable sun through the hole at panel 2. And so
it's just, instead of a beam, you're just having a super bright hole in the board.
Correct. Yeah, okay. And I believe, I want to say it's 11,000 is the rating of the light. I'll have to get the exact number of the, we call it a portable sun. It's very expensive, about a $300 light. It's called I can't remember the name of it. Anyway, it's this very bright light. We call it a portable sun because it's insane. You can easily see it from we were out there with that night. You can easily see it from 4 miles away. There's no doubt, without even a camera. You can just see this light. So what we're going to do is put that light behind that first hole, make sure it's lined up that the camera can see it, and then we're going to go back to the third panel. Now, here's the problem. If the Earth is curved at that third panel, there'd be no way you would see the light when you shine it through the hole, because the straight line sight will be through the first panel, through the second panel, and if the Earth is curving away, you will not be able to see that light at the third panel. Now we're ultimately going to go to the fourth panel and put a light behind that hole, and again, if you can see that light from the beginning, well, then what you're looking through is a very straight line shot, meaning that those holes are the exact same height above the water, meaning that the Earth would be a level plane. Now, if you don't see it, some people might say, well, that's not really proof of the globe. It depends. We'll have to get out there and see how it goes. So that's something we're going to be doing very soon. We're going to head out there. It's a great location because there's that road that runs right along the canal, and we've thought about doing the torque the line there, and I didn't like that because the canal itself can be filled with leaves and other such thing. But as far as getting a distance of something above the water line, it's incredibly simple. And then also the other thing is at 4 miles there, we're actually thinking of doing it at 3 miles, because at 3 miles there's still a 6-foot drop. There needs to be a 6-foot drop at the fourth panel. And even doing that at 3 miles, even if there's, people might say, well, what about, the tides coming in on that canal? Well, the tides usually range less than a foot as far as the highest and the lowest. So, and the test that we do is so quick because it's a short distance. You're only walking 1 mile, setting up a panel, measuring it. Okay, walk to the third panel, measure it, and you can be done within an hour, and then you can go back and observe. And that's what we're planning on doing. So I showed David, and I'll actually make a video about it just to show I kind of set up a little mock experiment. Dave, can you kind of tell what I did there?
Yep.
Yeah, so what we did is I have a shuffleboard table that's, it's only, 15 feet long or whatever, but I set up some panels kind of showing the idea, cut a circle in each of the panels, and then shined a flashlight behind each hole. And when you get behind panel 1 and you look through the holes, you can only see them if it's perfectly lined up. The second that one of those holes is dropped just a little bit and you put a flashlight behind it, it's impossible to see the far flashlight because you don't have a line of sight anymore. So it's a great experiment.
When you FaceTimed me with Missa and Kurt yesterday, it really gave me a good visual.
Yes, Curious Jay was a very big fan of that as well. So, is that who you're talking about, Curious Jay? I think so.
Kurt Cobain.
Yeah, Kurt. All right, let's go unless, David, do you have something else to talk about before we get to the phone calls? I'm trying to remember if we had anything else on our list.
We were going to talk about solar power coming from the sky and robbing us blind like they do, but we'll talk about that another time. Let's take some calls.
All right, let's go to the phones. 814 is the area code. You're on with Jeranism Monday Night Raw. Who's this? Where are you from?
Hi, this is Aaron. I'm from Pennsylvania, but I sound Australian.
You certainly do. Why is that? I'm assuming that you're from there.
Yes, I am. It's my wife's fault that I'm in Pennsylvania.
Well, at least at least you're right side up now, so it's not that bad.
Yeah, but it's very cold, so it's not good.
It is miserably cold lately. I agree.
It is.
What's up? What can we do for it?
So my question is if you just disregard everything that globers have to say about everything, I'm generally curious as to why there appears to be a lack of a good sounding board for self-contradictions and obvious problems with flat Earth explanation.
How so?
And I can walk through an example, for example.
Please.
So if you guys bring up the photo, the world-famous photo of Chicago from across the lake, I'm sure you're familiar with it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I have heard you guys say numerous times that this is exactly what we'd expect to see on a flat Earth, right? You guys have said that?
Well, the fact that you can see the buildings, you mean?
Yes.
Yes. That's what we're saying is that, they haven't gotten too small in that distance to be too small to see from that distance. So the fact that you can see across, a 40-mile lake and see the buildings is what you would expect on a flat Earth. Correct.
Right. But more specifically, I'm talking about the famous photo of the weather guy showing the photo, and it has the looming. And it's just that I've heard you guys say that this is what we'd expect to see. So
what we're saying is this is what we would expect to see because we can see it. If it was a globe, we wouldn't be able to see it. That's what we're saying.
Yep. Fully on
and so
board
on a flat Earth, it
Fully
varies on what we see.
Okay. And there's been time lapses where you can see that time. Okay, go ahead.
Right. So all I'm trying to say is that if this is an example of what we'd expect to see, why is it on the news?
Because that's a great question. Because it was a local news station, and they brought it up, and the guy didn't know, and he's like, "Well, we can't see it, so it has to be a mirage," and he figured it was an interesting story, but we don't know the reason.
Right. I understand that, but the issue is that if anybody can just walk down to the foreshore with a nice camera, take a photo of it, this is literally what we'd expect to see, and if it's anything that we'd expect to see, you don't make the news. Whereas if it only happens like once a year or something, why is it newsworthy?
Because as he described it, he said,
why is it unusual?
As he described it, he said, when the conditions are right, and then he goes on to describe the conditions when you have this certain air above the water and the temperatures have to be. And what he's describing is exactly what flat earthers say. They increase your chances of seeing further. That you'll never see that in the summer ever. The reason why is because the hot air is very murky. It's the hardest thing to see through. That's the most convoluted air you'll ever get is the summer above water. So if you go out there in the summer, if you go out there in June, July, August, you will never see the buildings across that lake. You have to go out when the conditions are right, meaning that it's cool, that the water's calm. That's the only conditions that you can see that far. Flat Earth that.
Yeah. Also, that picture was taken a few years ago, and the super zoom cameras like the P900 weren't that popular then. So you can't see it with your naked eye, but you can see it with a zoom camera on a specific day. So it was very rare occurrence because even though it is visible many days, you have to be looking with the right equipment on the right day. So that picture was shown. It made a little publicity. It ended up on the news, and the guy thought he was smart in explaining it away. With Helios nonsensical nonsense.
But our point is that those buildings are always there. That's the flat Earth point. Is that those buildings are never not there.
Right, but that's also why it's an obvious problem. Because if they're always there, then we'd see them more often. Because it wouldn't be subject to once or twice a year that you get to see.
Well, hang on a second, Jeran. Let me get this.
You'd be able to measure.
You're making an assumption that it's not there all the time. Go to John X Army, a non-flat earther channel. He's got a big following. He was just there and had his P900 zoomed in, saw Chicago. First time there, first time trying it. There it was. Got a perfect picture of it. Okay. So it happens a lot. Go there. You'll be able to see it.
But again,
I have to admit that I haven't watched that video, so or that somebody. Well, I haven't heard a report of somebody turning up every day to measure the results because that'd be what science is. So if you're sciencing the problem, you'd turn up every day, you'd measure the temperature of the water, temperature of the air, and then you'd get a pretty good idea as to what those circumstances are, and then you'd actually be able to science the problem.
No, but we know what the circumstances are.
I haven't seen evidence of that.
It's when the air is the clearest. It's when the air is the clearest. It's the coolest. You have to have that super cool air that you can see through. I mean, that's how you can see far. And we know that, you'll never see across the Atlantic Ocean to Spain from the East Coast because everything is too small. So that's a case where somebody might say, well, on a flat Earth, well, in this case, it's not.
This is a part of the obvious contradiction because the photo of Chicago wasn't on a clear day. It did involve refraction. It wasn't a clear day. So that's where these obvious problems start attacking the issue.
Do you realize though that the entire building should always be covered by the water on the globe Earth? That the globe.
Right, but I also understand as to what refraction does.
Okay, so you're saying, so you understand what refraction does, you say. So you think that there's something that's actually lifting those buildings up higher so that we can see them over the curve of Earth.
Right. So I don't want to get into an argument about a misunderstanding of refraction. All I'm saying is there doesn't appear to be somebody actually sciencing the problem of getting out every day and then trying to understand as to why it is so infrequent that you actually get to replicate that photo of Chicago.
Okay, what does it matter? It doesn't matter if it's only one day. If it happens once every 3 years, it doesn't matter if it happens once every 3 years. The weather conditions dictated it. The weather conditions there aren't it's not like the Caribbean or a super clear place. There's all sorts of pollution. There's all sorts of moisture. There's all sorts of stuff. If it happened once every 10 years, it only has to happen once. But it happens all the time.
That's
many
incorrect,
days
though.
a year.
That's incorrect.
No, Rob Skiba went down there.
You're the only ones doing science.
Hold on.
No, Rob Skiba went down there.
If you're the ones that are arguing doing science, things should be repeatable.
Predicted that the weather was what it was, and he took a trip across the mountain. I don't know if you saw this, but he went on a boat, filmed it the entire way across, proving that it wasn't a loomed up image from refraction. So from the beginning to the end. And he went there and it was visible the day he went there. So that means that it's not a rare occurrence. It happens all the time.
Now, caller, just I muted you because nobody can hear what anybody's saying if we're going to talk over each other. And I'll definitely give you a chance to talk and just give us a chance.
Understood.
So, okay.
Yeah, understood. Sorry about that.
No problem. So real quick, just so it's kind of understood that what we're saying is you said we need to go science it. So let's just bear with me for a second. If I went out there every single day, and I take a picture every day. And some days it's so murky that I can't see it, but then other days it's clearing up and I can't see it. So you're saying by doing that day by day by day that then we'd be able to quote unquote science the observation. But here's the problem is that on the days that we can see it, science tells us that it's being refracted up. So that's what you want us to do.
No,
what do you mean?
But that isn't the science. That isn't the whole story. Because it isn't a case of going out there, can I see it, yes or no? It's going out there and then completing the science, which is what's the temperature of the water, what's the air temperature, and what's the wind, because they're all very big factors on refraction. And over time, you'll actually start to understand as to the things with a refractive index that will have an impact on it, and the things that won't.
So let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question. Rob Skiba had this experiment idea, and he waited for a day where it wasn't too windy, it was clear, and the temperature was cool and proper. So he booked a flight. He went over real quick, hopped on a boat.
There you go.
Took out the camera. Hold on a second. Let me finish. And he was able to see it. So you're saying that day, because he did the science, somewhat, he's able to see it. You're saying that it's refracting up because he could see it. For whatever the reason, whatever the conditions were, because he could see it, you're saying refraction. But he proved it was not refraction by filming it all the way across, because if it was refraction, it would go away on his trip over. And it wasn't. So that's science.
Let me say one thing, then I can give you a final comment here, caller. The other thing is that next to my house here, and this is just maybe 30 miles or 25 miles to my east, I have the huge set of the Sierra Nevada mountains. Okay, they're right there. Now, every single day, I can't see them. When I look to all it is just sky. I can't see anything. It's murky. It's gross. I can't see it. But there's some days where I can go outside, and it has to be this time of year. It has to be winter, and for some reason it's so clear. all of a sudden I can see the snow-capped Sierra Mountains right next to me. Now, I'm not saying anything about I shouldn't be able to see them or I should based on the curve of the Earth. That has nothing to do with it. They're such huge mountains. They're 10,000 feet or whatever that I should see them at all times. But I don't see them because of the weather conditions. So then when it's clear enough, all of a sudden I can see those mountains. What you're saying is, based on the science, I'm to believe that those mountains are not there when I can't see them, but when they can, that they're being refracted up? No, it's just simple. It's a simple case of the air is not clear enough for me to see that far. That's all it is. Oops,
you're saying...
Oops, no, I didn't. I thought you were on mute. Go ahead.
Mute? No, I'm muted.
Sorry.
But, so you're saying that the highly infrequent things changing is the air being quote unquote clear enough and not clear enough.
Wait a minute. Hold on. Have you done the science?
Hold on, Dave. Let him finish real quick.
All right, go ahead.
So the difference is if you measure the things that actually have a difference for refraction, which is temperatures, wind, like surface temperature, air temperature. So you would find that those correlate a whole lot more than quote unquote air being thin enough, because you're in the mountains. The air's already pretty darn clear. You're in the mountains. There's no pollution or anything.
Stop. I didn't say that at all. I live in the valley. I'm like 50 feet above sea level. I'm nowhere in the mountains. I'm talking about looking to my east. There's a huge mountain chain, the Sierra Nevadas, that I can't see. It's certainly during the summer. During the summer, there's absolutely no way I would ever see those mountains. But during the winter, on a super clear day, has to be no clouds in the sky. It's very crisp, and it's just insane because I go outside and look over to my right, and all of a sudden there's a huge mountain range with snow-capped mountains that's never there. The reason it's never there is because, like you said, the conditions don't allow me to see far enough. So we've talked about this before. It's just like panes of glass. You could put 10 panes of glass in somebody. They can see
but it's a case of... But what is affecting that? Like panes of glass doesn't actually change the distance. Like if the sun set behind the mountain, you would see the sun, and that's 3,000 miles away.
Well, wait a minute. Hang on a second. I have to ask my question now. You're making assumptions. One, you're saying the sun's 3,000 miles away. Nobody knows how far the sun is. But you said,
no.
Hold on. Forget that. That's not my question. Let me finish. Here's my question. Did you do the science on how many days of the year have the right conditions to see Chicago? Have you done the science? Have you done the measurements that you're talking about?
I don't live in Chicago.
You said you have to measure the temperature, the humidity, the whole thing, the wind speeds. Have you done the measurements? Do you know how many days per year that happens?
So
it's a yes or no question. Have you done the science?
I haven't done it.
Okay, your statement is that it's a very infrequent happening, that it happens very infrequently. Where are you getting that from? That it happens very infrequently?
Good question.
The obvious fact that it made the news. It made the news. It's that infrequent.
That's ridiculous. A local news station picked it up where a weatherman thought he could show his weather and
you're trying to say
knowledge.
That something that happens every day, something that happens frequently because it's quote-unquote reality, is going to make the news.
Let me ask you, but here's the thing. It happens. It's not photographed every day.
Right.
It's not photographed every day.
Because most people don't assume that you can see it. Most people who go out, if you go out every day to that lake and during the summer and you're out boating with friends, you would never see it. So it's a rare occurrence for this newscaster to see this image and say, hey, look, you can see these buildings. Now, here's the reason it was shown on the news. Because in their model, the curvature of the Earth must block all those buildings. And in this particular case, he says, oh, look, now you can see those buildings, which are usually blocked.
That's a great story.
It's very cool. This is usually Earth curve is blocking it, but on this particular observation, it's been lifted up, it's been refracted, but he actually called it a mirage. He didn't even call it refraction. He said it's a mirage. And it's not a mirage. That's the building.
Well, there's two kinds of mirage.
Yeah, inferior.
Because the refraction is either neutral or it bends up or bends down.
Okay, so tell me about this. What mirage doesn't flip the image? Every single mirage in the history of the world has flipped the image, but that particular one, the buildings stay upright. Why aren't they flipped?
So this is a part of it. So with refraction, we understand, like you can buy a $30 refraction test kit on Amazon, right? And we can all learn about the actual specifics of refraction. We can learn about what.
Okay. Sorry, caller. I know you got a lot of time, but we got a lot of callers. We're going to get to everybody else. Thanks for the call. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to Jeranism Monday Night Raw.
Tell me about the waters of your homeland, Morty.
It is well known that the key to escaping the Matrix is purifying your consciousness. But our consciousness is bombarded daily with chemicals in the air we breathe, the food we eat, and the water we drink. This is why we are proud to bring you TFRwater.com, where you can get the Alexa Pure water filtration system. Unlike typical water filters, the Alexa Pure comes standard in stainless steel to keep your water free of BPA and dangerous chemicals found in plastic. This revolutionary water filtration system removes 99.999% of all contaminants, including fluoride, a dangerous neurotoxin added to drinking water, which was first used in Russian gulags to keep prisoners docile. This is standard without the need for expensive add-ons. The Alexa Pure retails for $199, but you can get $50 off by going to TFRwater.com now. Supplies are limited. 4 per person, please.
Do you want to lose weight but have no idea where to begin? The Fast Start Diet, a 3-day weight loss plan, is the answer. 3 days of nutritionally balanced, calorie-restricted meals delivered right to your door. No shopping, no measuring, and no cooking. Everything is prepared for you and ready to eat at home or on the go. The Fast Start Diet has all the amazing benefits of intermittent fasting without starving. We've helped thousands of people who have struggled to reach their weight loss goals. Isn't it time we helped you? With the Fast Start Diet, you'll lose weight and feel great.
Find us on Amazon or go to faststartdiet.com and use promo code POWER to get $10 off your first box. As a special bonus, we will include our #1 rated Lipo3 appetite suppressant spray free with your order. Whatever your diet plans are, start with us at faststartdiet.com and use promo code POWER.
Fear is the mind killer. Fear is the little death. This is Uncle Walt from the Ironworks. Josh, Corey, and I have chosen to look at life with no fear. No fear of the unknown. No fear of questions about the supposedly well-known. No fear of ridicule for thinking outside the familiar fool's lines. No fear of the boot on the neck of those refusing the party line. No fear of taking on those so convinced of their beliefs they would sooner drink the Kool-Aid than believe they've been fools made. In this world filled with me too, cattle think, can truth's protective layers be peeled back to show the tender, juicy pink? Are we all just grist for the mill? Souls sold against our will, or is that just how it feels? When you're filled to the rim with trivialities so fear-filled and grim, break clear of the fear. Right here, Tuesdays and Fridays at 2 a.m. on TFR. Josh and I and you will hammer out the impurities of technology-driven groupthink, fold in a dash of logic, and quench it all with a bit of absurdity. The Ironworks. Break clear of the fear.
No hate, no hype, no fear. We are TFR. Frequency Radio.
All right, welcome back. You're listening to Jeranism Monday Night Raw. We got lots of calls to get to, so my apologies for staying on that call so long. But I thought maybe, Dave, we could get him to understand, but I think we did not. But one thing that I think I just thought of during the break is the mountain at Canigou. That is the same kind of issue where that mountain should be clearly blocked by the curvature of the Earth if we lived on a globe, and the fact that it takes the sun setting directly behind it to show the silhouette of Canigou. And maybe he would understand then that it's not a matter of, oh, it's a great news story because in this particular case it's no, the news story in that case is we can only see that mountain when the sun sets behind it. And I mean, if the sun set behind Chicago, I'm sure you'd see it all the time as well.
Every time it does that. There was this a pure case of, he doesn't want to let go of the ball, brainwashed, and assumptions. The sun is 3,000 miles away. Fact. It's very rare that happens. That's a fact in his mind. I would say that I bet there's probably close to half the number of days of the year that you can see it.
Yeah, I would say.
I don't know. Again, but that's a guess. But I haven't. The fact that Rob was able to make a trip and it worked that day, and that John X Army was there and brought his P900 and it happened to be that day. That's not a 1 out of 365. That's for sure. More like a 50-50.
Yeah, and as far as you need to go look at images of all the different kinds of eclipses, all the different kinds of mirages that there can be, and you'll notice one factor that is always the same, and that is that the image flips, it reverses upside down. Even the image that you see on the ground is of the sky. It's been flipped. That's why we see mirages. That's why you see reflections of boats in the water. But everything is always flipped. In this case, that's why I have it at the beginning of my videos where the newscaster turns and says this is a mirage, because it's not a mirage, because mirages are flipped.
But didn't he say it's flipped and then it's flipped again, and that's why we saw it, because it does a double flip? Wasn't that part of his explanation?
It might be, but I've also seen time lapses that show that the buildings stay right there.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Rob filmed it all the way across, which proved that it wasn't a mirage.
All right, let's go to the next caller. We'll try and keep this call a little bit shorter if we can. From the 732 area code, this is Jeranism Monday Night Raw. Who's this?
Hey, this is Nick from Minnesota. How's it going, guys?
What's up, Nick?
Yeah, well, first of all, don't you guys know that everything that's on the media is fact? So
right. I know that.
But yeah, I was just calling. I'm like a new dad, and I don't know, Jeran. I don't know if you have any young kids. I think.
My child is now an adult.
Yeah, well,
believe that my child is over 18, so I don't have any children anymore.
Oh, and then Dave, you got older kids too, right?
Correct.
All right. Well, my question was, how to go about just educating, this little kid in he's going to be going to public school and the indoctrination is going to start. And I don't want to freak the kid out and contradict everything he's learning. So I'm just trying to kind of set a game plan now as to how I can best educate him.
It's simple.
It's a question, but yeah, I think we have the answer for you.
It's very simple. Homeschool, no vaccinations, vegan diet.
Give the kid a steak every once in a while. Come on. No.
Yeah. I keep telling my wife, if I can homeschool, I would, but you can't afford that.
And if you can't, here's what you do. You have to teach critical thought. And this is something that I just wish this simple conversation would have been had by my parents with me when I was young, and just said, hey, everything that you learn in school is a consensus belief. It's what the majority of people believe, but it doesn't mean that it's true. And you need to keep an open mind to other models. They're going to teach you that you live on a spinning ball in space. That's what a lot of scientists say, but the scientists who say that have a worldview that says that the Earth cannot possibly be the center, even though every test and experiment ever done has proven that the Earth is fixed, that it does not move, and that truly we are the center. Even when you look at the galaxies that they say are going away, all the galaxies that they can see are redshifting, meaning they're all moving away from the Earth. So that proves that we are the center. But what did they do? They conceptualized. They said, what can we possibly come up with that can explain this? And then they said, if we were on a balloon, and every other galaxy is on a balloon, and somebody's blowing up that balloon, every galaxy would appear to move away from every other galaxy. And they went with that one. They said, okay, let's just go with that. So that is the reason for the expanding universe and the Big Bang Theory. It's simply to cover up the fact that from Earth, we have a central location, everything's moving away from us. So you have to kind of tell them that there's two sides of every story, right? There's two sides of every coin. And they're going to teach you one side of that coin at school. They're going to teach you about evolution, but tell them there's a lot of people who don't necessarily, even scientists. It's not just all scientists believe in evolution. No, that's not true. There's some scientists that don't. Now, they're not going to be proclaimed. They're not going to be these big namers. They're not going to be like Dawkins or these guys, because no. But you just have to teach them critical thought, that not everything you're taught in school is a fact. And I think that one sentence, if it was told to me when I was a child, I would have gone to school with a different open mind. I really went there thinking that everything that I was told, and I sat at my little desk like everybody else, that we were getting the truth. And it's just not the case. Now, when you realize that the world is run by people who want to keep their power and keep their wealth, then I understood, oh, wait a second. You would never, if you were powerful and wealthy, you would never get around with other people that are powerful and wealthy and think, how can we make these youth as powerful and wealthy as us? Let's give them all the knowledge that there is in the world so that they have it all at their fingertips. Well, that wouldn't make any sense. What makes more sense is them getting together and saying, how can we keep everyone down a little bit? How can we keep the knowledge for ourselves so that we hold on to this power, we hold on to our riches, we can get smarter and grow, and these guys can serve us in whatever way that we want. So that's all I would do, is I would teach, if, and hopefully I do have another child. Miss and I may be trying soon. We're getting closer to thinking about it. And if we do, that child will be raised just to critically think. I won't even raise them as a flat earther, because I don't think that's safe either. I think it's safer to say, hey, there's two sides, and let them decide, because that's ultimate. It's up to everyone. I want everyone to have a chance to truly be comfortable with their beliefs. And if you teach a child one set of beliefs, whether it's religious, whether it's scientific, whether it's evolution, if you teach them one set of beliefs, then they are going to get locked into a belief system, and it's going to be incredibly hard for them to ever see anything any other way. And I think that's unfair.
Yeah, you make a good point. I mean, growing up, I was told there's like several different kinds of religion, and I was aware of that at a young age, and I was able to, see if that was for me, if I've been kind of looking different places for spirituality. But as far as like the globe model goes, that's the only one that was ever taught. So
right.
Yeah, I mean that's a good point.
Yeah,
so,
that's it. Thanks for the call.
I appreciate it. Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for the call. And that's the one thing that I wish was taught to everyone. And that's why I think we can change the world by talking to these children and not indoctrinating them in the opposite way and saying, no, the earth is flat and all these people are lying to you. You have to give them the opportunity to review the evidence and decide for themselves. And I'm so confident in that I believe that if anybody goes and reviews the evidence and looks into it with an open mind, now, unfortunately, people who we tell, hey, go look into this, they've been preconditioned with the worldview that science has given everybody, that it's evolutionary, that the earth is 4.54 billion years old, and that we're just a random speck in the middle of everything. But all the science, and please check out my video that's going to be coming out tomorrow, if I do it live tomorrow, on all these quotes that prove, and these quotes are by these famous scientists who say that there is no test that proves that the earth moves. However, it's what they want. And you can hear Hawking say that, on the grounds of modesty, we choose to put ourselves as a speck in the middle of space. And that's the reason that they're saying it's on modesty is because otherwise, then they have to say that the earth is central. But the problem with that is if the earth is central, then somebody put it here. It's here for a reason. It's of prime importance. It's central. It's the apple of God's eye, if you will. And really, what does all the evidence tell us? Well, there's no life anywhere else. There's nothing anywhere else except for right here. Everything that there is right here. So to me, it's a simple equation. Oh, well, this is the center. This is everything that's important. We're put here for a reason, and there's a meaning to our life, and there's a designer who designed it and designed this place for us to live. I mean, look at how perfect it has to be for us to be here. I mean, if it was 100 degrees hotter, or it wouldn't even have to be 100 degrees hotter. If it was 50 degrees hotter, we probably couldn't live here right now. If it was any much colder, you wouldn't be able to live here. So everything has to be so perfect for us to live here. It just makes sense to me that this is of the prime importance. And when I saw what science has done and the comments from Edwin Hubble and saying that the absolute horror of a unique position, and that it's untenable, that they will not allow it because at that point, then there is somebody smarter than them. And Neil deGrasse doesn't want anybody smarter than him. He feels like he knows it all, and that him and his buddies have figured out the age of the earth, and they can rewind the clock of the sky and go back to 1/1000th of a second after the Big Bang. It's all just nonsense. But to them, I've said before, but they tell us how insignificant we are, and by doing so, they've made themselves significant. So, Neil deGrasse is significant because he tells you you're insignificant. You're just stardust. And that makes him significant. But in my opinion, there's so much more importance behind it than that. Let's go to the next caller. You're on with Jeranism Monday Night Raw. Who's this way from? Oh, sorry, 808 area code.
Jeran. Hi, Chuck.
Hey, what's going on? How you been?
Oh, good. How are you?
Good.
Dave,
It's been a while.
Chuck. I met Dave last summer sometime in Connecticut. Dave.
Okay, hey man, how's it going? Oh, Chuck from Hawaii.
From Hawaii, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
So I've been holding so long. I forgot what I initially called.
Sorry about that.
Just the astrology guy. Yeah, I was raised too that astrology was bullshit and everything. But when I went to India and had my first astrology reading 20 years ago, it just blew me away. And they were vague enough. It didn't, it said something happened this year in '83, and they were right. They didn't say what happened, but they knew something happened because it's in my chart that something happened. They didn't say but something significant did happen in '83 in my life. And then it said, then I had it another time I went to India 10 years ago, and so astrology, it's the stars, it's energetic, and again, this is living here in Hawaii. The stars I see every night, when it's clear enough, and clear from rain. We still have clear skies out here, not too many chemtrails. So, anyhow, that's my big thing. It's the astrology thing. My other thing is this other guy was totally the guy about just talk about water. Just anybody call. I don't talk flat Earth anymore. I talk flat water.
Right.
Because that's what people can relate to. Because you see, flat Earth is actually a wrong name because there's mountains and valleys. It's really flat water or non-globe. That's how I start my conversations off with flat Earth now. It's just, and I don't. Anyhow, I'm rambling, but at the same time, I just hit people up at. I take care of this vacation rental place here, and guests come through here, and I can judge them. You talk about the moon landings, I could tell if they're not ready for it. But the ones I have hit up with, and with David's book there with all the memes in it, it's great. And then I got Howard Hendricks' book. That's another good
Edward Hendry. Edward Hendry.
Yes, Edward Hendry.
Yeah. Chuck bought two of my books, the coffee table books, and leaves them in the lobby for his guests.
Yeah. So in with the other books, it's not right on the coffee table. I can't freak people out too much. So, and then another thing. There's so many coincidences, like growing up and things I remember now. There's only a few things I remember from school, but one of them is when they told us about we live on a spinning ball, and then I go outside at recess or after class, whatever, and I look around and I don't feel any motion. But the teacher said we were spinning a ball, blah blah blah. And then they told us, Columbus discovered America, and he thought he was in India. But I'm looking at the globe. How did he get past Malaysia and Indonesia to get to India from the west?
Right.
From the east, I mean, you know what I mean? Because how did he get to India? He would have passed. They knew where China and Malaysia were.
Right.
It didn't make any sense. Like, how did he, at anything, he would be reason the Philippines before he'd be in India.
Right, doesn't make sense.
It's so ridiculous. So yeah, I didn't call it any questions just because I was listening here. I hurt my legs. I'm mending my legs, so I was able to listen. I'm usually working. It's still daylight here. I'm usually working. Anyway, I love you guys. Dave, next time in the summertime, I'll
Thanks, Chuck.
Hook you up.
All right, appreciate it. That's an awesome call from Hawaii. And, Dave, if I had to do it all over again, I'm not sure that I would call it flat Earth because there's so many other things that could probably be said better. And I look at it again and I say, why does everything flat have a negative connotation to it, right? I mean, you got my soda's flat. When you're singing bad, you're singing flat. You got a flat tire. Your wife is flat, right? You have flat feet. So, it's got a negative connotation that goes with that word. And so really, he's right. I mean, it's not flat, it's level. And it's got mountains and it's got valleys and it's got peaks. But it certainly isn't flat. And I think a lot of people might just hear that and immediately think of a piece of paper. And they think, I've heard people say, well, flat earthers are so stuck in a 2D world. They think we're in a 2D world. It's like, no, we don't understand it's a 3D world. We understand what 3 dimensions is, and everything around us is 3 dimensions. It doesn't mean that you live on a giant sphere. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And I totally agree again with what he said. And this is something for the guy who thinks that, the buildings are hid by water across the Lake Michigan. You have to look at the amount of the hump of water that they say is between you and a person in Chicago when you're looking across that. And it's just ridiculous. The height of this hump, how is there a hump of water between you two? We know that water lies level. Look at any glass of water, look at any bathtub, look at any river, look at any lake. Water finds its level all the way across. Now, again, you can believe in the metaphysical sphere and that everything's pulling to the center. And so, yeah, there's curve, but actually everywhere on that curve is level. And that's just a metaphysical religious belief that people who have a space fantasy religion believe in. And I don't have that religion anymore. So let's go to the next caller. You're on with Jeranism Monday Night Raw in the 214. Who's this?
Hey.
No.
Make it quick.
Jeranism and David Weiss. How's my favorite flat-earth San Franciscan and New York City Jew boy doing tonight?
You got 30 seconds, Evil Alex.
30 seconds. We're counting down.
Ladies and gentlemen, introducing exclusively for Jeranism Monday Night Raw listeners and the entire flat earth community that can hear the sound of my voice, my newest product, Beyond Mr. Bubbles Bubbly Bath Bubble Shampoo and Conditioner.
Take them out.
Discover the power of ancient medicines and herbs and wisdoms.
Well, thank you very much. It sounded more like Kurt Cobain to me. I don't know. Let's go to the next caller. Where am I going? Here to the 334. You're on with Jeranism Monday Night Raw. Who's this? What's up?
Hey, Jaron. This is Carlos from Alabama. How are you doing?
Carlos, good. Did you hear earlier in the show where I talked about that experiment we're going to go look at? Not an experiment.
No, I tuned in. You were halfway talking through it. When I tuned in, you already started talking. So I understand you're going to try to attempt to use the lights instead of holes on the panels?
No, we're going to use a hole, but shine a light from behind the hole.
Okay, instead of doing the laser.
Right, yeah. Same kind of thing that happened with my 4-mile test, where originally we did the 4-mile test by shining a laser across the ocean, and then the beam was too big over there. So ultimately how we did that test was by zooming in the camera and picking up the laser on the other side. This is kind of the same concept. Rather than trying to shoot a laser, which, like I told people, the minimum I could find anybody to have a laser that they would say would keep that beam diameter was $4,000. And even then, I couldn't get anybody to guarantee me because they said, oh, well, this is all done mathematical and it's not real world. And if there's any kind of atmospheric conditions, so I wasn't going to spend $4,000 on a laser that may or may not hold that beam diameter. So I think this is a better bet, and we're going to go out and I called it an experiment. It's not an experiment. What we're just doing is we're going to go out and make an observation.
Excellent. Cool.
What's up?
All right, that sounds good. But yeah, did I hear you say you homeschool your son? Is that correct?
My son is out of school now, but I homeschooled him for 7th and 8th grade.
Cool. Yeah, I homeschool also my kids, and I was homeschooled myself. And yeah, I hear you talk about instead of teaching a certain model as far as cosmology, you try to just show or I guess teach critical thinking. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yep.
Would you make a video about how would you teach somebody critical thinking? Because that I kind of have a hard time trying to wrap my head around how would you teach somebody critical thinking. I just think that's a really interesting concept.
Okay.
I don't know. You think that's something you might be able to make a video about? Because I think that's very interesting. That you it'd be nice if you would elaborate more on that.
Absolutely. I'm writing that down now because I think it would be a good video. And people have asked me before, Jeran, will you do a kids video or will you make a video for children? And I haven't done that for that exact reason, that I think it's more important. I certainly don't want to tell children, the earth is flat, and that because I want them to be able to hear both models. And I think that's how you feel comfortable in your belief. I'm comfortable in my belief that the earth is a level plane and that we're the center of the universe because I've heard and understand the alternative. So again, it would be really up to
and that's
teach me one.
Yeah, and I told Robbie Davidson when I met him. that I have kids, and I was like, the kids ask me questions when they see me doing research and say that that one of my daughter asked me. She said, "Did men walk on the moon?" And of course she's 6, so she's kind of like trying to make sense out of that. And there I was caught in between.
What'd you tell her?
Telling her yes. Well, this is what I said. Even though I'm not a flat earther, I said, you know what? I said, well, it's people say that it happened. There's videos about it, but there's other people that think that didn't happen. And I said, what do you think? She said, I don't know. That's crazy. But she said, would you walk on the moon? So I kind of just, I tell her both sides now.
Well, that's
and,
good. Yeah.
So
like a critical thought would be, a critical thought thinking or teaching right there would be to explain that it was, certainly a long time ago, 50 years ago, that they supposedly did it, and it's questionable to me, extremely questionable, that with the advances in technology and the memory capabilities and everything that we have that has grown since 50 years ago, that space travel has not just regressed, but basically ended. I mean, the furthest any human has gone, according to even if you believe in NASA fully, is 250 miles. But 50 years ago, men went quite easily 250,000 miles. And let the child decide for themselves if they want to, go watch those videos and ask, with the movies that they've seen. I think today most children would never believe it, because you can just show them any movie and say, is this real? Is this scene real? I think children don't even realize when they're watching a movie, or let's say a show, maybe, I don't know, I can't think of a show off the top of my head. Let's think of, I don't know, any kind of TV show. So Home Improvement, or, TV show like that, 2.5, whatever. Just any, it tells you how long ago I watched TV. I just pulled a Home Improvement out. Full House, or, right. But I think the thing is, people don't realize that that's not a real house. That just because the opening scene of Full House shows a house on the street in San Francisco, and then the next scene is them inside this house, I think children all grow up believing that that's a real house, but it's not. It's a set. Yeah. And so I think even thinking like that helps people understand what they're looking at, and that things on TV are not as they're meant to make you think that things are the way they are. Maybe you see a scene in a submarine on a certain show. You might look at that and say, "Oh, that's real. They're really in a submarine." But you have to realize that that's not. That's a set. So, I mean,
the way I grew up watching TV, because my dad is a big geek and he knows all about cinema and movie making. My whole childhood, I remember asking my dad, "Hey, Dad, how do they do that? How do they make that?" Because I was interested in special effects. So, but all the other people just accept it. So, but there you go. That's some material for you to make that video. So,
hey, thanks. Appreciate it.
It'd be very interesting to talk about that. So, no problem.
Take it easy. Sorry, we have a lot more calls. Dave, before we take the last call, do you have any final words so we don't get hung up on the call and not get any final words out?
No other final words. Then check out the app. Check out the
Zodiac
Flat Earth. That's it.
It's awesome. Yeah, keep researching it, and we'll eventually, find the truth. At least we'll get closer to it. That's my goal, and hopefully people respect the search for the truth. And again, you can simply believe what they've put in front of you. But with the ease that it would take to fake such a thing, and I mean, tell your daughter, Carlos, that there's no more film of the moon landings because NASA taped over it. Tell her that, and then tell her that even the original film that they had was somebody with a camcorder recording off of a TV screen. Why? Because they only had that one input, so-called, coming from the moon. They had to go to this one TV screen, and then somebody had to film the TV screen to get the scene of the moon landing, which is ridiculous. This isn't 1930 we're talking about. This is 1969, 1970. There's no reason to do that unless you're controlling what comes into that TV screen, and you only want the film to be of what's exactly on the TV screen. Very easy to fake. Ridiculously easy to fake, really.
So I was over at some friend's house who are ballers, and they're just very full of themselves, good people, but they are all talking about First Man, and basically I could hear them talking about it. First Man is writing their memories for them. This is what officially happened, and they can defend the moon landing because of this movie. And that's how they do it. And now there's one coming out about the Challenger, and they use these movies to write history.
Yep, because then that's what people will believe. They believe that that these movies are being. I mean, why would they think anything different? Like, oh, this is a movie about this historical event, and it just gets put into consciousness. And again, I tell people all the time that if we grew up and we didn't look up at the moon and think to ourselves, oh, people have been there, people have stood sideways on it, and then I don't think people would have it as easy as a time admitting or at least believing that they live on a giant sphere. So just the moon landing being taught and being shown in a movie, right away they put out a movie like First Man. How many people go see that movie? I don't know, tens of millions. I mean, I don't know how many people are going to see it, but how quickly and easy is it for them to indoctrinate everybody with that belief? So, guys, it's been fun. Sorry we ran short. I apologize to everyone on the line. We'll try and get you next week. Then, peace.
Censorship and regulation is becoming an ever-growing problem in today's modern media. From the mainstream to YouTube and Google, the information you're looking for is buried by official narratives and propaganda. This is why TFR is 100% uncensored, unregulated, and listener-supported. The shows on TFR are not micromanaged by the station, and our hosts are free to speak their minds however they please. As such, the views and opinions expressed on our station are of those who make them. If you happen to hear anything offensive on TFR, please send us an email to toughtitty@tfrlive.com, and we'll be happy to tell you that we really don't give a damn. We stand for freedom of speech and non-censorship. If you also stand for free speech, you can go to tfrlive.com/signup and sign up for a TFR supporter pass and help us in our mission to keep the airwaves uncensored and unregulated. TFR Live, your uncensored and unregulated protection from deception.
States challenge Trump emergency. Police believe Smollett faked attack. I'm Evan Haining.